Welcome all of you. In the previous lecture, we have seen the pH, pOH, relation between pH and pOH, and also we have studied the acidity, basicity and neutrality of the solution. Now today, in this lecture, we have to study the concepts of hydrolysis, then hydrolysis, definition of hydrolysis of salts, and then types of salts and their preparations, and also we have to study the mechanism of the salts. Now let us start the definition of hydrolysis. Before going to see the definition of hydrolysis, first of all, we will see the definition of neutralization. In the 9th, 10th and 11th standard, we had seen what is meant by neutralization. Remember this point. What is meant by neutralization? The neutralization is the process in which the acid reacts with base to form salt and water. Acid HCl, base NaOH, salt NaCl, sodium chloride, and water. Therefore, this reaction takes place by two arrows. Therefore, it is a reversible type of reaction. In this reaction, the forward reaction is called as the neutralization and reverse reaction is called as the hydrolysis. And therefore, this reaction is used for the preparation of hydrolysis and the hydrolysis of salts. Therefore, the hydrolysis of these salts is defined as the reaction in which cations or anions or both the ions of the salts reacts with ions of the water to produce acidity, basicity or sometimes even neutrality. So the definition, the definition of hydrolysis is that the reaction in which cations or anions, cations means what? Positive charge, anions means what? Negative charge, or both the ions of the salt which reacts with the ions of the water to produce acidity, basicity or neutrality of the solution, and is called as the hydrolysis of salt. Therefore, here the HCl plus NaOH, it gives what? NaCl plus H2, and this is the NaCl is a salt. Then the types of these salts. What are the types of salts? There are 4 types of these salts. Which are those? First is the salt of strong acid and strong base. Second one, salt of strong acid and weak base. Third one, salt of weak acid and strong base. And fourth one is a salt of weak acid and weak base. Now let us consider the how will you prepare the salt of strong acid and strong base. Strong acid like HCl, strong base NaOH. Whenever it reacts with each other, gives NaCl plus H2, and this NaCl is a salt of strong acid and strong base. Other examples for the strong acid and strong base are sodium sulfate, sodium nitrate, potassium chloride and potassium nitrates. The second salt is a salt of strong acid and weak base. What is a salt of strong acid and weak base? The strong acid like HCl and weak base ammonium hydroxide, whenever it reacts with each other, gives ammonium chloride, and this ammonium chloride is a salt of strong acid like HCl and weak base NH4OH, that is a ammonium hydroxide. Similarly, other example like strong acid is a H2SO4 sulfuric acid, it reacts with the copper hydroxide, that is the weak base, and gives the copper sulfate plus 2 of H2O. Therefore, this copper sulfate is a salt of strong acid H2SO4 and weak base copper hydroxide. Then third salt, salt of weak acid and strong base. What is the salt of weak acid and strong base? The weak acid, acetic acid, and strong base, NaOH, sodium hydroxide. Whenever it reacts with each other, we get sodium acetate, that is CS3COONe, and this sodium acetate is a salt of weak acid and strong base. Then fourth is what? Salts of weak acid and weak base. What is the salt of weak acid and weak base? Suppose here weak acid like acetic acid and weak base ammonium hydroxide, whenever it reacts with each other and gives what? Ammonium acetate, and this ammonium acetate is a salt of weak acid and strong base. These are the four types of salt. Which one? First is a salt of strong acid and strong base. Second one, salts of strong acid and weak base. Third one, salts of weak acid and strong base. And fourth one, salts of weak acid and weak base. This is about the types of the salts, hydrolysis of the salts, and the neutralization reaction. Next point, concepts of the hydrolysis. See here, when a salt is dissolved in water, it dissociates completely into its constituent ions. The solvent water dissociates slightly as, see here, H2O plus H2O, that means what? Two molecules of water, it dissociate into hydronium ion, that is what? H3O plus ions plus OH minus, that is hydroxyl ions. Then the pure water is a neutral. That means what? Hydronium ion and hydroxyl ions are same. That is concentration of hydroxyl ions is equal to the concentration of hydroxyl ions. That means what? The water is in pure water, which is a neutral in nature. That is the hydronium ion and hydroxyl ions are equal. That is in place of H3O, we can write H plus ions, and therefore this H plus ions and hydrogen ions and hydroxyl ions are same. At that time, the water is a neutral. Therefore here, if the ions of this salt do not interact with water, the hydronium and hydroxyl ions concentration remains equal and the solution is neutral. That means what? The ions of the salts do not interact with water. सॉल्टचे आयन जर पाण्याबरोबर इंटरॅक्ट झाले नाही तर त्यावेळेस काय होतं? हायड्रोनियम आयन and hydroxyl ion concentration remains equal, and at that time solution becomes neutral. Fine, whenever this one or more ions react with water, and then the equality of the concentration of H3O ions and OH ions is disturbed. आता सॉल्ट मधला एखादा आयन जरी पाण्याबरोबर रिॲक्ट झाला तर त्यावेळेस काय होतं? हायड्रोनियम आयन आणि हायड्रोक्सिल आयनचं कॉन्सन्ट्रेशन डिस्टर्ब होतं, ते बिघडतं आणि त्यांची इक्वेलिटी होऊ शकत नाही. दॅट मीन्स व्हॉट? कोणीतरी एकमेकापेक्षा कमी जास्त प्रमाणात असू शकतं. म्हणजे या ठिकाणी काय दिले? व्हेनेवर वन ऑर मोर आयन्स रिॲक्ट्स विथ वॉटर, the equality of the concentration of H3O, that is hydronium ion, and hydroxyl ions is disturbed, then the solution does not remain neutral and it becomes either acidic or basic depending on the type of the salts. लक्षात तुमच्या? म्हणजे या ठिकाणी H3O आयन आणि हायड्रोक्सिल आयनचं जर कॉन्सन्ट्रेशन डिस्टर्ब झालं तर त्यावेळेस ते सोल्युशन काय असतं? न्यूट्रल नसतं. म्हणजेच it does not remain neutral and it becomes what? Either acidic or basic depending on their types of the salts. And the such reaction, आता याच्यामध्ये एक डेफिनेशन करते आपल्याला, such reaction between the ions of the salts and ions of the water is is what? Called as the hydrolysis. That means the reaction between ions of the salt and ions of the water is called as the hydrolysis, and this is the concept of hydrolysis. Next point, the mechanism of the salts. In that first salt of strong acid and strong base. What is the salt of strong acid and strong base? NaCl is a salt of strong acid and strong base. NaCl is a salt of strong acid like HCl and strong base NaOH. But whenever this NaCl dissolved in the water, it dissociates completely into its ions. NaCl is a salt. This salt ha salt कोण आहे? This is a salt for strong acid and strong base. So it dissociates completely and gives what? Na plus plus Cl minus. Here ions, that is sodium plus ions and Cl minus ions, are the strong ions. These are the strong ions, and therefore they have no tendency to react with the water. Because possible product NaOH and HCl of each strong electrolyte, and it dissociate as dissociation होता है ठिकाणी Na plus plus Cl minus plus H2O. It gives what? HCl plus NaOH. This HCl is a strong acid and this NaOH is the strong base, and therefore this strong acid and strong base, whenever it again reacts with what? Water, then it will give what? H3O plus plus Na plus plus Cl minus plus OH minus. That means here reactant and products are same. या दोन्ही साइडला काय होते पहा, the reactants and products are equal, means what? There is a same ions in reactant side as well as on product side, and therefore there is no difference between the reactant side and the ions of the reactant side and the ions of the product side, and therefore the salt of strong acid and strong base does not undergo hydrolysis. That means what? According to this, there are same ions on reactant side as well as on product side. Therefore, according to this example or according to this reaction, it may be concluded that the salts of strong acid and strong base does not undergo hydrolysis. For 2 marks, one question will be asked. Which type of question will be asked? Explain the salts of strong acid and strong base does not undergo hydrolysis. For 2 marks, this question will be asked. Next, salt is a salts of strong acid and strong base is over. Next, salts of strong acid and weak base. What is a salt of strong acid and weak base? Copper sulfate is a salt of strong acid like H2SO4, and weak base copper hydroxide. When this copper sulfate is dissolved in water, it dissociates completely. Salt dissociates completely, therefore it represented by single arrow. Therefore is what? CuSO4 is dissociated into Cu2 plus SO4 2 minus. Here this SO4 is a strong ions, therefore this ion have no tendency to react with the water because the possible product sulfuric acid H2SO4 is a strong electrolyte, and the reaction of Cu2 plus ions with OH minus ions form unionized copper hydroxide, and then the hydrolytic equilibrium for copper sulfate is then written as which one? That is a Cu2 plus 4 of H2O. It gives what? CuOH twice, that is copper hydroxide plus 2 molecules of hydronium ion. This is the reactant side and this is what? Product side. आता reactant side आणि product side मध्ये काय फरक आहे? तर या product side मध्ये H3O ions आहेत, that means hydronium ions आहेत. And according to the definition of acid is a substance which gives H plus ions. That means what? H plus and H3O are equal. We can write H plus ions in place of H3O plus ions. Therefore, here due to the presence of excess of H3O plus ions, that is hydronium ions, the resulting solution of copper sulfate becomes acidic and turns blue litmus paper red. Therefore, the solution of strong acid and weak base is acidic in nature and it undergoes hydrolysis. Due to what? In the product side, excess of hydronium ions are present. As a result, it becomes, that means what? The solution of copper sulfate becomes acidic. आणि मग अम्लामध्ये काय होतं? ऍसिड मध्ये blue litmus turns red, and therefore the solution of strong acid and weak base undergoes hydrolysis and it becomes acidic in nature. This question again will be asked for 2 marks. Explain salt of strong acid and weak base is a acidic in nature or it undergoes hydrolysis. Next, for 2 marks or 1 marks, to a stock solution, copper sulfate, small quantity of H2SO4 is added. Give reason for 2 marks. आता असा प्रकारचा क्वेश्चन 2 मार्काला तुम्हाला विचारू शकतात. मग त्यावेळेस आपण काय करायचं? अगोदर कॉपर सल्फेट दिले, मग कॉपर सल्फेट इज अ सॉल्ट ऑफ काय सांगितले? स्ट्रॉंग ऍसिड अँड वीक बेस. Then that means what? This copper sulfate, it dissociate in its aqueous solution or it dissociate with water. It gives what? Copper hydroxide plus H2SO4. That is what? Strong acid like H2SO4. Then on hydrolysis, copper sulfate, a weak base copper hydroxide is formed and it acts as a PPT. अशा प्रकारचा हा प्रेसिपिटेट तयार होतो आणि मग तो प्रेसिपिटेट तयार झाल्यानंतर ते सोल्युशन काय होतं? टर्बिड होतं आणि टर्बिडिटी जाण्यासाठी किंवा हे नष्ट होण्यासाठी आपल्याला काही प्रमाणात H2SO4 टाकणं गरजेचं आहे. म्हणून व्हॉट काय सांगितलेलं आहे? which make this solution turbid and to dissolve this PPT, make this solution clear, the small quantity of H2SO4 is added in it. आलं लक्षात तुमच्या? ते 1 मार्कासाठी किंवा 2 मार्कासाठी हा क्वेश्चन येऊ शकतो. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, नेक्स्ट थर्ड, the salt of weak acid and strong base. What is the salt of weak acid and strong base? Sodium acetate is a salt of weak acid like acetic acid and strong base sodium hydroxide. Then when this salt dissolved in the water, then it dissociate completely. Gives what? This sodium acetate dissociate completely. We get what? Acetate ions plus sodium plus ions, Na plus ions. The water dissociates slightly as H2 plus H2. That means what? 2 molecules of H2 it dissociate into H3O plus plus OH minus ions. This solution of sodium acetate contains Na plus ions, H3O plus ions, acetate ions and hydroxyl ions. These Na plus ions of salt have no tendency to react with the OH minus ions of the water and therefore acetate ions reacts with water. CH3CO ions reacts with water and to form weak acid like what? Acetic acid. See here this reaction. Whenever these acetate ions it reacts with the water, it gives acetic acid plus hydroxyl ions. When the salts, sodium acetate, it dissolves in water, we get what? Acetic acid plus sodium plus, that is Na plus plus OH minus ions. That means here CH3CONA plus H2 dissociate into CH3COOH plus Na plus plus OH minus. ज्यावेळेस H2 आपण सोडियम ऍसिटेट मध्ये H2 ची रिएक्शन सोडियम ऍसिटेट बरोबर केली असता आपल्याला काय तयार होते? ऍसिटिक ऍसिड प्लस Na प्लस प्लस OH मायनस आयन्स. आता ही रिएक्शन फार महत्वाची. ऑन द प्रॉडक्ट साइड काय या ठिकाणी? there is excess of hydroxyl ions. According to the definition of base is the substance which gives OH minus ions, and therefore due to the presence of excess of OH minus ions, the resulting solution becomes basic and turns रेड लिटमस ब्ल्यू. अलग लक्षात तुमच्या? म्हणजे बेस मध्ये काय होतं? बेस मध्ये रेड लिटमस ब्ल्यू होतो and therefore it undergoes hydrolysis. This question again will be asked for 2 marks. Can be asked. What? Explain the salts of weak acid and strong base is a basic in nature or it undergoes hydrolysis. या चारही रिएक्शन तुम्हाला लिहावं लागतील 2 मार्कासाठी. तो क्वेश्चन महत्वाचा आहे. अलग लक्षात तुमच्या? काय क्वेश्चन आहे? काय क्वेश्चन आहे? द सोडियम एसिटेट इज अ सॉल्ट ऑफ सोडियम एसिटेट अंडरगोज हायड्रोलिसिस और एक्सप्लेन दी सॉल्ट ऑफ वीक एसिड एंड स्ट्रॉंग बेस अंडरगोज हायड्रोलिसिस. अलग लक्षात तुमच्या? हा 2 मार्कासाठी क्वेश्चन महत्वाचा आहे. आता पुढे पहा, salts of weak acid and weak base. What is the salt of weak acid and weak base? The Ba is a salt of weak acid and weak acid weak acid Ha, and weak base BOH. Whenever this salt it dissolves in water, it dissociates completely as Ba dissociate completely B plus plus A minus. या ठिकाणी Ba काय झाला, डिसोसिएट झाला. हा इलेक्ट्रोलाइट आहे, सॉरी हा सॉल्ट आहे, म्हणून काय झाला या ठिकाणी B plus plus A minus. And then this both the ions, that is B plus plus A minus, which reacts with water and forms BOH. BOH is the weak base and HA is the weak acid. See here, B plus plus A minus plus H2, it gives what? BOH. This is the weak base and HA is the weak acid. आता पहा या ठिकाणी, the solution may turn out acidic, basic or neutral depending on the relative strength of the weak base and weak acid formed in the hydrolysis. This is the explanation about the salts of weak acid and weak base. Then next point, criteria to identify the solution is acidic, basic or neutral. Solution is acidic, basic or neutral. Suppose here Ka is more than Kb. At that time the solution will be acidic. What is K and what is Kb? Ka is a acid dissociation constant or dissociation constant for acid, and Kb is the dissociation constant for the base. Whenever this dissociation constant for the acid is more than the dissociation constant for the base, at that time solution will be acidic. Similarly here, K is less than Kb. K is less than Kb. That means what? Dissociation constant or acid dissociation constant is less than base dissociation constant. At that time solution will be basic. Solution will be basic. And last one, whenever this K is equal to Kb, the solution will be neutral. म्हणजे K आणि Kb या दोन्हीची व्हॅल्यू जर समान असेल, सारखीच असेल, तर सोल्युशन कसं असतं, हे इक्वल असतं. म्हणजे सोल्युशन कसं असतं, हे न्यूट्रल असतं. अशा पद्धतीने हे तिन्ही क्रायटेरिया आहेत. आपण या तिन्ही क्रायटेरिया कशावरून सोल्युशन ऍसिडिक आहे, बेसिक आहे, न्यूट्रल कशावरून ओळखायचं आपल्याला, तर whenever this K is more than Kb, the solution is acidic. K is less than Kb, the solution will be basic, and K is equal to the Kb, solution will be neutral. अशा पद्धतीने हा लेक्चर आहे. या ठिकाणी in this way we have completed this topic. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Stay home. Be happy.